name is Kelly Clausen, and I'm originally from Warren, Michigan in the States, but I currently reside in London, Ontario, and I'm 44 years old. I had a bit of a difficult childhood. I was raised Roman Catholic, and when I was little, like when we lived in Michigan still, we went regularly to church, and I went to Sunday school as well. And then when we moved to Canada, I started going to a Catholic school. And personally, I loved it. Like, I loved going to Catholic school. I loved going to Mass. And not everything was logical to me, though. Even when I was little, the idea of original sin was very disturbing to me. And it didn't make any sense. It was illogical to me that a baby would go to hell if it wasn't baptized. I basically just struggled through those years in between, like from the time I was 12 until the time I was 42, 43. I can look back now and just, God was always there. I was the one who had turned away from God. He hadn't turned away from me. Prior to a year ago, last December, I really had absolutely no idea about Islam at all. I know I had heard about Muslims during 9/11, but it wasn't anything. I didn't know anyone. I had formed no opinion. If somebody had asked me at that time, I would have been, I know nothing about it. I think they don't eat pork, and they wear headscarves, and that's the extent of my knowledge. I had nothing, and I had no interest in it either. But 2 or 3 years ago, I knew that I missed God in my life. And then I met someone online and started talking with them. And they were a Muslim, and that didn't mean anything to me. Sent me a few lectures, and the lectures actually were of Brother Rajabali, I believe, is in Dearborn. And the first lecture that I watched, he talked about original sin, which of course, because I had such difficulty with as a child, it was perfect. And he talked, and I think the lecture was probably 30 minutes long. And at the end, I knew that this is what I had been looking for my whole entire life, was Islam. Just from that short lecture, it was the things he talked about, it was logical. Like the original sin, and he talked about Adam and Eve and everything, and it just resonated with me. And so that was the beginning. From there, I just started watching everything I could find on YouTube. I started reading ebooks. I knew then, even though I didn't know the process to come to it, that's when I knew. But I didn't really know anyone else who was a Muslim, other than the person that I spoke with online. And even then, I started reading about the 5 pillars and about praying and stuff like that. And that was in December of 2012 that I first started, on my birthday, that I first started to learn about it. The more that I studied and the more that I learned, the more sense that it made. The next step that happened is I wanted to learn Arabic. I bought a Quran. It was beautiful. Reading it is beautiful. Whenever I feel upset or about anything or angry, I take some time and I go and sit down, and I'll just pick up from where whichever. I try to read a chapter at a time. And when I'm feeling upset, I sit down and read, and it's instantly relaxing and calming. And somebody had recommended that to me, a sister. She's like, well, if you're just feeling upset or your kids are acting crazy, just go and sit down and read some verses, and you'll be amazed at and it's true. It's true. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Actually, how I came to follow the path of the Ahlul Bayt is, that in itself is interesting, because many years ago, about 8 or 9 years ago, I had read a book called The Tao of Pooh, which is about Taoism based on the stories of Winnie the Pooh. I had heard about it. I'd loved the Winnie the Pooh stories as a child, and so I was like, I'm going to read this. And there was a line in that book that said, I can't remember the context of it, but it was, be still and listen for the calling of the 12. And that just I was just like, that really resonated with me. I wrote it down and hung it on the wall, and I didn't know what it meant. I was thinking of the 12 apostles. I'm like, what's this referring to? So why does this mean something to me? And then I forgot about it. And then as I was studying more about Islam and learning a little bit about the Sunni and Shia differences, and I looked on Wikipedia of all things. I looked up Shia Islam on Wikipedia, And then I saw this thing that talked about the 12er Shias, and then I remembered that line that I had read, and I was like, that's what it meant. This is for me. This is where I need to go. This is the direction I need to go in. And that's when I knew. And it was probably 2 months later before I actually did my Shahada at the Shia, but that was like, I just knew. And I love learning about the Imams, and especially Imam al-Mahdi. And it's fascinating to me. It resonates with me. It resonates with my heart. And Imam Ali is, of course, he's the most inspirational to me. And it was, in our culture, we get so caught up, maybe even as Muslims, we get so caught up in how things look and how many degrees we have on our wall and what car we drive and or how big our house is. And he was like the antithesis of that. Like, you know, the story where the shirt where he has, you know, he himself wears the poorly tailored shirt and gives the good shirt away to, like, that's the example that we should be following. And you know, how he fed all those people and no one knew who was dropping the food off until after he had passed, and then the food wasn't being delivered anymore. Like, it's like, what an amazing personality, and his patience to wait. And I only know the very littlest, like, I'm only just learning. Like, I'm just learning the very barest. And of course, even like in his sons as well. It's just a never-ending example and reminder of what's really important. It's not what we think. It's not what we get. It's like the illusion of our culture of, you know, it's not that. And for me, following the Ahlul Bayt, that's my reminder for patience and for to be humble, and, you know, and to give, not so that I can say, look what I did, but, you know, so that no one ever knows. It's because I'm not doing it for anyone else. And it's just, that was always missing for me. I didn't have good examples. It's a beautiful gift. Fasting is a beautiful gift. It is a prescription for health, not just physical health, but spiritual and emotional. And so I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be more challenging, obviously, this year. I'm working and with the kids and things like that, but I'm looking forward to it so much. Because you wonder, like, why do all the Muslims look so forward to Ramadan? Like, what, they don't want to eat for a month? Like, that's crazy. But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.